Good morning, everybody. Today the reading is from Matthew 5, verses 21 to 37. You have heard that it was said to those of ancient times, "You shall not murder, and whoever murders shall be liable to judgment." But I say to you that if you are angry with a brother or sister, you will be liable to judgment. And if you insult a brother or sister, you will be liable to the council. And if you say, "You fool," you will be liable to the hell of fire. So when you are offering your gift at the altar, if you remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there before the altar and go. First be reconciled to your brother or sister, and then come and offer your gift. Come to terms quickly with your accuser while you are on the way to court with him. Or your accuser may hand you over to the judge, and the judge to the guard, and you will be thrown into prison. Truly I tell you, you will never get out of it until you have paid the last penny. You have heard that it was said, "You shall not commit adultery." But I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman with lust has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye causes you to sin, tear it out and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one of your members than for your whole body to be thrown into hell. And if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. It is better for you to lose one of your members than for your whole body to go into hell. It was also said, "Whoever divorces his wife, let him give her a certificate of divorce." But I say to you that anyone who divorces his wife, except on the grounds of sexual immorality, causes her to commit adultery, and whoever marries a divorced woman commits adultery. Again, you have heard that it was said to those of ancient times, "You shall not swear falsely, but carry out the vows you have made to the Lord." But I say to you, do not swear at all, either by heaven, for it is the throne of God, or by the earth, for it is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great King. And do not swear for your head, for you cannot make one hair white or black. Let your word be yes for yes, or no for no. Anything more than this comes from the evil one. We trust in you, O Lord. In your word we have hope. Sorry, I missed you up. Thank you.
Oh gosh, it's one of those sort of passages where I probably could, I'd rather do this as question and answer over about an hour than try and give you, that might bore you, but I rather feel like there's a lot of things in this passage that are really open to being misheard, and I don't have time to address them all in this time here this morning. I've addressed them at different times as this passage has come up in previous years, and I'm happy to talk to you about what hell is in this passage, because it's Gehenna. I'm happy to talk to you about the number of things in this passage that are really easy to hear as judgment on our lives. And I don't really want to spend much time in that space. And I'm not doing it because I just want to avoid it because I don't like it. I don't want to do it because I don't think that's really what the passage is saying. I don't think that's what we're meant to carry away from it. And that's where I'm going to go today, just very quickly. There are times, I just don't want to go there, all right? So last week we had this line from Jesus where he says that he did not come to abolish the law, but he came instead to fulfill it. And by that, he didn't mean that he was kind of like coming to live out the law letter by letter, word by word. In other words, what he was trying to say is, I've come to complete it. I've come to fill it out. I've come to contextualise it. I've come to plug the gaps. The law still exists, but I've come to give it more. That's what Jesus was saying last week. I'm come to give it its meaning for our time, is what Jesus was saying to his audience then, 2,000 years ago. So even though he's only 1,500 years past when the law was written, he's saying the law doesn't make a whole lot of sense in our time if we just read it literally. Even then. And we've come another 2,000 years on. And yet I know so many Christians that spend a lot of their faith is built around the law. And if you want to see Jesus completing or fulfilling or contextualising or plugging the gaps of the law, here's 4 examples of it in our passage today. That's what it's all about. You have heard it said, but. This is Jesus doing it right now. It's the next passage from last week's passage. I haven't come to abolish the law. I've come to help you understand what the spirit of the law is. And here we get 4 examples of it. And he's picked 4 of the really tight and hard topics of his time. And there are probably even many in our time. Still, they don't get much more to the edges of the law, the extremities of the law, than the 4 things that have happened. There are 4 things, 4 things that he pulls out that are both religious and civil law in his time. Now we've separated those things out a little bit 2,000 years later, what's civil and what's religious. But for his time, they were tied up. What was religious and what was civil law were one and the same in most places. And I rather suspect he picked these 4 because they probably came up in conversations he was having with people. Now, I don't know about you. I've met a few murderers in my time. Not a lot, but I have. I don't know if you've met someone who's committed murder. I know I have. I tell you what I have done. On a few occasions in my life, I've held back someone from murdering somebody else. And you may have done that. I certainly know people who have been divorced. I'm one. I know people who have committed adultery. I know people who have lied to get their own way. And Jesus picks, these are 4 hot topics for his time. And they are still live topics for ours. It was really clear what the moral code was through the law, what was expected of you. But also what the punishment was all spelt out. And let me say very clearly that Jesus is saying, you've heard it said that murder or divorce or adultery or bearing a false witness are they're serious issues. And they are. And in the Greek, he pulls out the words that are used. So he's saying these are really serious things. These are really serious things, but they start in other places, in your heart. He says, murder has a starting point of anger, of indignation, of not being able to see past your own frustration, your own anger. That's where murder starts. Or it might even be more cool, calm, collected and calculated than that. But it has a starting point that says, I've got you. The word adultery and divorce, both times that word is used in the passage, it comes alongside a word which I've shared with you before. I've shared with you the sin that we do by chucking every word that means all kinds of range of things under the one word sin. That's actually a sin. We're missing the mark when we do that, when we call everything sin, because it's not all the same. And the word, this word gets translated as sin, but it's actually the word in the Greek is scandalise. And what it means is is to cause another person to stumble, to use a power imbalance to get what you want that causes another person to stumble. That's the word that's used here in this passage. Now we miss that because we just say, oh, sin, all right? We can do better. The word is scandalise. And what it means, as I say again, it means, in the Greek, what it means is it's when you've done something to get your own way that causes another to stumble. So Jesus is using lust as a way, and kind of adultery in this sense, and even divorce, as a way to say you knew what you wanted and you did what you wanted and you used your power to get what you wanted. The last one he uses is false witness. And actually in the Greek that word just means the same as perjury. So again it means ignoring the needs of another person or the truth of the matter and telling falsehoods to get your own way. And what I rather hear Jesus saying here is, and this is my way of saying it, don't be a boundary rider. He's saying, here's the boundary, here's what gets you there. He's saying, don't be a boundary rider. Now what I mean by that, and I meet so many people in life who know what the law is, either the moral code or the civil law. They know what it is and they live just inside its edges. Do you know what I'm talking about? Do you hear what I'm saying? Like it's things like, it's called negative avoidance. All right? I have a degree in psychology as well, and I don't like to lean into psychology too much, but it's called negative avoidance. It's kind of like knowing where the boundary is and just staying one step back from it, being like avoiding the shame and the punishment that comes with doing the wrong thing. You know, it's a bit like saying, yeah, I got really angry, but I didn't kill them. I wanted to, but I didn't kill them. I would have, left alone, I would have. Or it's, you know, I can have chat to lots of women or lots of men, but I'm not committing adultery. No, I know you can talk to lots of women and lots of men. You know what I'm trying to say here though? You know, I can ride that boundary really closely. I'm not going to go any further than that. Just, you know, like there's a classic line, business is business. I'll do what I need to do to get done what I need to get done. And if that involves a little bit of, you know, but I'm not committing perjury. I'm not doing an untruth. I'm just doing what has to happen for business. I've just got to do what business requires here. We all know that. We all know business is business. And I think Jesus is saying, you know what? Here's all the law, and here's what gets you there. We're all aware of that. We all know. But you can do better than that. You can do better than that, than just living on the edges of moral code. You can do better than that, than just staying inside the law. The law is good to know what's wrong. I'm not saying the law is useless in that regard. It's good to know what the wrong thing to do. And often laws are created because we just don't know how to care for each other very well, how to look out for each other, and we need laws to tell us so. But you know what? Wouldn't it be nice if we didn't? Wouldn't it be great if we didn't need hate speech bills? Wouldn't that be great if we didn't need them, if we didn't need hate speech laws? Wouldn't it be great if we didn't need e-bike laws? They're coming, but wouldn't it be great if we didn't need that? Because we all knew what it meant to look out for another person. To see the value of another person, face to face, eye to eye. Jesus is saying to us, don't define your faith by your moral code. You can do better than that by how upright you are. You can do better than that. They're part of it, but they're only a responsive part of it. I always want to believe that Jesus is trying to be inspirational and aspirational. I said this last week, and I want to share it again today, because I think it's there in the passage. It's tightly closed up in all the law and the judgment and the don't do this, like you've heard it said, but I want to get to the buts in the passage, because I think they offer us something really valuable about how our faith can shine in a way that gives abundance, not just being boundary riders and staying inside the law and keeping out of trouble. The other way I want to say this is just knowing where the boundary is and knowing where a life perishing is, doesn't give you life. Just being able to name what the law is and what the boundary is and what the punishment is doesn't actually give you life. It just gives you an awareness of what not to do. And I think what I'm trying to say through all this, I hope you can pick it up with me, is that Jesus is trying to say to us, it's one thing to know what not to do, but here I'm telling you what you should be doing if you want to know life in its abundance. Are you with me? Do you understand what I'm saying through this? Okay, I won't harp on the same point anymore. Because what Jesus is saying here, I think, is... I'm just going to find my point, sorry. Oh yes, here we are, right. So, rather than letting anger lead to murderous thoughts, all right? Rather than letting your life get to that kind of point, the passage told us the way to life in the midst of that, or the way not just to avoid, just this is a way of saying you don't have to worry about the law. You can live in freedom if you hold to these kind of principles. So Jesus is saying about the anger and the murder one, rather than letting yourself get so indignant and so angry and so worked up, so needing revenge or just what you think is justice or an eye for an eye, Jesus is saying, the word's used very clearly. It's only the male, but it goes both ways. See a brother or a sister. See standing in front of you. Don't see an enemy. See a person. See another child of God, another human being. And where there's been wrongdoing, try and find peace. Try and find reconciliation. Be prepared to forgive. Try and find a space where, if you need it, to be forgiven. I've talked before about the idea that embrace our errors. Rather than trying to cover everything up and then blame somebody else, embrace our errors and seek forgiveness. Or go to somebody who's wronged you, and rather than letting anger drive the conversation, try and find a place where there's understanding and peace and reconciliation. Instead of reaching and leaning into scandalize, whatever the Greek word is, it's somewhere in there, rather than letting lust drive your relationships with either everyone or some or particular people, rather than using your power to get what you want sexually, give the other person back their dignity. See them as a person. See them as a brother or a sister. They're not an object to satisfy you and your needs. They're not in your way. That's what Jesus is saying here, I think. You might be right by the law to get a divorce. You might be right but you're actually creating issues down the line. Do your best to do this in a way that holds dignity for both of you. not just your own needs. Rather than bearing false witness to get what you need or want, rather than committing perjury, Jesus is saying here, the phrase is, let your yes be a yes or your no be a no. I used to run a drop-in centre for street kids in Redfern. That was my very first placement. Man, oh man, talking about I nearly saw a few murders there. And I had one of my volunteers would come along and he wanted to try and get all the drop-in centre, the street kids, to stop swearing. Because the Bible says, let your yes be a yes and your no be a no. There's no need for any swear words. Oh, talk about a misunderstanding of the scripture, all right? Or taking some of the words to make it suit what you want to say. Because what the passage is saying here about yes and no is don't swear to God. Don't take an oath on your dying mother's grave. Don't swear to the depths below, all right? What Jesus is saying here, let your own honesty and integrity stand up for itself. Don't ever put yourself in a position where someone has to question your word. People won't question you if you are a person who's known to be truthful. Do you get what I'm saying there? So rather than living by the boundaries and getting away with what you can get away with and lying when you can to try and cover stuff up, Jesus is saying, you know what? Don't live on that boundary. Don't live by that law. Don't let the law be the thing that has to control you. Take control of your own life by being a person of honesty and integrity and authenticity. When you say something's going to happen, make it happen. When you don't know something, say that. Don't try and cover everything up. Don't lie about or don't create gossip or story about other people's lives to suit your own need to be accepted into a group. So I hope with this passage of scripture today that rather than hearing the judgment and what I shouldn't be doing, I'm hoping what you can hear is, here are some ways that my life can be one of freedom, where I get to choose how I can be in a way that's life-giving. I've been talking a lot about boundaries, but my hope is that what you experience is that the grass is greener on the inside, closer to the middle of the paddock. Because there are so many people who live riding the boundary. All right? The grass is greener in the middle. That's where abundant life is. That's what Jesus is kind of, if I could put it into a contextual thing, that's what Jesus is saying to us. This is where faithfulness is found. This is where pleasing God is found. This is where living spiritually is found. This is where the fruits of the Spirit come alive in your life is found. When you choose the centre of the paddock, when you choose rather than negative avoidance, the fear or the guilt or the avoiding being found out for crossing a boundary, when you say, you know what, I want my life actually to stand for something, not to be avoiding something. And what I want my life to stand for, and the 4 examples we got today, are all around how we engage with others, seeing others first, and choosing to be people who share values like peace and reconciliation and forgiveness. To be people who, rather than objectifying people, we choose to see another person for who they are. Or rather than getting our own needs met, we go into relationships saying, how can I lift you up? Rather than telling false witness, like if we were people of authenticity and honesty and integrity, we don't need to worry about getting caught up on the edges. I know I said it earlier, I'm going to say it again, I know today's passage had gaps and triggers perhaps for you. And there were words that came up that you kind of went, oh, and that's okay. I'm happy to have that conversation with you somewhere else. Today I just want to leave you with these words. It's good to be a person who knows the content of the law. It's good. It helps. But we're called to be people who seek much more than that. We're called to be people who seek and share life. Because in the end, I really think that's where the gospel speaks. In that sharing of what life can be. That's when doors open for conversations. That's where the gospel really comes alive. That's the good news, that even in the worst of life, and even when the worst things in life have happened to you, or you've been a part of them and you've got yourself caught up in them, there's always this chance to just do an about face and to turn into something else, something far more life-giving, something far more freeing, something far more spiritual, something far more godly. And that's the invitation to all of us, that Jesus brings life. Thanks be to God.